What should Travis Kelce's pitch count be? Well, Chris Jones has an idea of how it's going to go, and they're bringing pressure to the rest of the NFL. How are they doing it today on Locked On Chiefs?
From the land of the free and the home of the Chiefs, this is the Locked On Chiefs podcast.
Welcome back, friends and neighbors. We're brought to you today by Gametime. Super simple. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use our code LOCKEDONNFL. And you're going to get $20 off your first ticket purchase. Super simple. Terms do apply, but make it happen. I think you'll be happy. I'm happy here because finally the Chiefs come around to our way of thinking. We've been talking about this for a while. We're going to run down what happened here in the last practice of OTAs and honestly the comments that really tell this tale of it. He's Chris Clark from Chiefs Corner. He will give you all the information you're looking for over there on quarterbacks, on cap, on making the team building decisions financially that you need to do to prolong your shot at titles. I'm Ryan Tracy, the founder of Rogue Analytics and Performance Consulting, as well as NFL 33, where we just put out the best games that you need to see of quarter one. One of them, actually a couple of them are in Chiefs games, and RGR football as well, where we have a huge breakdown of what this deep threat passing game is going to look like. That's where we're starting today. And if you don't know that, we're here 5 days a week. Welcome to the show, because we are, just like the rest of the Locked On Podcast Network. So your team every single day for free on every platform, starting here on YouTube, going to Spotify, going to Apple Music, and anywhere you can get a free podcast, you can get us. And you can get that much more over on our text line at 816-357-8781. Go get signed up there for breaking news and our personal insights and more of a one-on-one conversation. So what's happening out at OTAs as they wrap up? They have 1 day left. We'll talk about what goes on with that here later in the show. It's stacking days together to make progress. Hollywood Brown had some interesting comments, and I think he put the pointy part forward for the rest of the NFL that they are going to put pressure on defenses, and I love it. But we start today with an interesting way to acknowledge that Travis Kelce is a Hall of Famer. We all know that. The discussion has fallen off of if, when, or where. Yes, he will be a Hall of Famer. But how long can he last? And we've talked about it, Chris and I, for what? I don't know, 2 seasons, about trying to get Travis Kelce on a pitch count to maintain him a little bit better. I think the injury is what changed everything, because even Andy Reid today said you can't have him out there every single play. He's getting older. You got to control the pacing and what has to happen. And we're here for it because we've been on that for a couple of years, that the injury illustrated the fact that if you can control how much he has to do in the first quarter of the season in particular, but really the first half, you have a better chance at having full Travis Kelce into the playoff run and towards that championship. And we know how important that is. It wasn't just Andy that had some colorful comments about what to do about Travis Kelce. What stood out to you today?
Colorful is one way to put Chris Jones's comments. We'll just say that he called Travis old, and we'll just put it nicely that way. He had a little bit more detail that we won't get into. This is a family-friendly show, but he also did say he was just giving Travis a hard time. But you make a great point. You know, we have been talking about him needing to have somebody that could spell him, and that they need to put him on pitch count. You know, they need to make it to where he's not playing 80-85% of the snaps. And, you know, let's go back just a little bit and look back at the playoffs and remember, you know, Isaiah Pacheco fumbled the ball getting ready to go into the end zone, and Andy Reid is getting yelled at by Travis Kelce, and Kelce was pissed because he wasn't on the field. So you're going to have to get him to buy into him being on a pitch count is I guess really what I'm saying with that. But the other thing that really stands out to me is Kansas City actually invested in the tight end position this year in the draft. And I think that really shows that this is a thought out process. It's not just, we know we need to get him on a pitch count. We can't, we can't do anything about it. We can't take him off the field because he's so necessary. It's now, they've found somebody, and I'm not trying to say Wiley is Kelce. He's not. But you need somebody that has his body size, his skill set to an extent to be able to feel like he can step into the offense and at least take over some of what Travis is usually doing.
I agree with you, and you make a good point there. Is it's not just let's keep experimenting on rare body types like Demetrius Harris. Let's not just try to find a complement to Travis. the selection of Wiley in particular was an acknowledgement that you have to have a new starting tight end. You can see it. It might be out on the horizon still, but it's there. And that, I think, was the shift. And it was probably, again, I go back to the injury last week one, that what happens if you have to be without him for a game or two? Stuff shut down last year. I think they're making a lot of inroads to avoid that this season. But that's, I think, what shifted. And from everyone that I've heard from about the attitude, not only around the building, but in the front office as well, it's an acknowledgement that it's a unique time to have Travis in the building. And someday we'll still be talking about this team being competitive and going for championships, and it will be without Travis Kelce. And I think they're to the point now. If you missed Peter Sugar's podcast, go give that a listen, because it's a really unique take on the big slick event that he goes to, and just how much the team is trying to live it up now and be in the moment while Trav is still here. And I think that's what they have to maximize over and over and over all season long.
And it's interesting that you put it that way, because that to me says everything that we need to know about how they're going to attack this season. And what I mean by that is, I'm not going to say that they're going to, they're not going to sell off things, and they're not going to, push all in and maybe trade away multiple first round picks to bring in extra players at the trade deadline. But I'm not going to be shocked if they don't make some kind of move at the trade deadline, trying to find somebody that can fit into their into the team and help them going forward. Maybe more so than even in the past, because you're in a situation where you're living in the present. You're in a situation where you're going for your third Super Bowl in a row, which would be historical. And you know that you are in a closing window of somebody that is given everything to this team in Travis Kelce. And you and I have talked about this many times, just completely changed from who he was as a player when he came here to who he is now as a leader for this team and what he is willing to do for this team. And there's nothing more that shows that than the last game of the season last year, when he easily could have gone out there and gotten 17 yards or gotten 16 yards for 1,000 yards. But it was more important for him to be healthy and ready to go for the playoffs. And then you saw what he was able to do against Baltimore when people were talking about their safety being able to shut him down. Patrick Mahomes had some very choice words for right after Travis Kelce scored that touchdown about how that went. So I think there's a lot to be said about how Kelce plays and his importance to this team and what they really feel like they're in a chance to do this year. And maybe they take it a little bit more seriously. Not that they haven't taken it seriously before, but maybe they do more things this year than they would have in the past, knowing that they have a window to make history, to be a historical franchise, because nobody's ever won 3 in a row.
Yeah. And I think that's the right way to go about it. It's time to put more concentrated effort into it. Concentrated effort has got to come all around this offense. And it's going to be the deep game. Hollywood Brown confirmed what we've been talking about for quite a bit. We're going to get into that coming up next on Locked On Podcast Network. Now, it doesn't matter if you're trying to get to a Stanley Cup playoff game, or you're trying to get in Arrowhead at the right time of year, because I personally have the AFC West team circled. I want to see the Chargers in this whole Harbaugh thing versus Mahomes and Reid. That's the one that is really grabbed my attention. And planning's a little bit tough for me, but if you need to make a last-minute decision, especially, the place to go is Gametime if you want to get those tickets, because they have last-minute deals all over every stadium, up to 60% off on last-minute offers on sports, concerts, comedy, theater, anything that you're looking for. And they have zone deals. So if I know the area that I like to sit in, Chris and I usually, in the games we've gone to together, sit in the same kind of area that gives us the best view, and that's what I'm always looking for. And I like being able to see what that seat looks like. They give you seat views in the app along with the guaranteed lowest price, and that's what makes the difference. Right now, you can take all the guesswork, whether it's the NBA tickets, whether it's NHL, or getting ready for this coming season in Arrowhead. Download the Gametime app, go create your account, and use our code LOCKEDONNFL, and that's going to get you $20 off of your first purchase. Terms do apply, but again, all you got to do is make an account and redeem that particular code. It's LOCKEDONNFL, and it's all one word, and that gets you $20 for free right off the top of your purchase. Download the Gametime app today. It's last-minute tickets, it's lowest prices, and it's guaranteed. The other thing that's guaranteed is I sometimes have to watch sports with sound turned off because I'm tired of hearing the announcers, hearing the back and forth. I don't like the arguing all the time. So if you want a more meaningful discussion about the sports that you're interested in, you want 24/7, you can find it on Locked On Sports today here on YouTube. You can go like and subscribe over there and get it on Amazon Fire TV as well. I'm looking forward to this aspect of what the Chiefs' next evolution is. And I know we're talking about going full circle and bringing like the explosiveness back, but it's also a new brand. And I think nothing stood out more to me today, or the comments that the players made, than Hollywood Brown, who had an excellent day on the field by all reports and has been making some plays. He hasn't been out there every OTA practice, but when he's been there, he's been making impact. And he said today, quote, "We're fast. We are definitely fast, and we're going to put a lot of pressure on people for sure. I think it's going to be exciting. I think everyone should be excited for it." End quote. That's the big thing, is it's not just about going out and having fun. It's not, hey, let's try to run Wasp and relive the Tyreek days. It's let's go put pressure on defensive coordinators. Let's put defensive backs into problem situations where they have to make choices that they can't win. And that comes with the speed of Hollywood, the speed of Xavier, the speed of Watson, even though he's bigger, older, and probably isn't as fast as he used to be. Now the addition of McCole, you have as much speed as a unit in this wide receiver core as they've ever had under Andy Reid. And I'm super excited about the fact that they're ready to wield it as a weapon.
You know, he went on, and one of the biggest things that stands out to me when it comes to the Chiefs, and obviously this has been the case ever since Andy Reid got here, he lets his players be who they are. And he went on to say, you know, Hollywood Brown went on to say that he is not having to be in just this room or this room. He is being allowed to be a weapon, and he is being allowed to be himself. And that's important. I mean, you look at where he's been in the past. I mean, he was in Baltimore, he was in Arizona, and now he's in Kansas City. And one of the things that he brings out and he says up front is they're allowing me to be who I am. And while that seems pretty small, that could be huge for Hollywood Brown. If you pigeonhole him, and if he's been pigeonholed over the last couple of years, this is what we want from you, this is what we expect you to do, and all that in Baltimore and Arizona, Andy Reid is going to look at what his skill set is, and he's going to put him in the best place that he could possibly put him and give him the best opportunity to be successful and stretch the field. And I don't care if he has 1,000 yards. I think he could have 1,000 yards this season. I don't care if he has 1,000 yards, because I do know that when he's going to be on the field, he's going to be stretching the field, and he's going to be opening things up for everybody else that's on the field with him.
I agree with you. It will be a concerted effort, and he will help open up for everyone else. The thing that I'm liking even more is the way that he's expressing it, and he's putting it out there, and he's challenging defensive backfields around the league today just by making these comments. Yeah. And I said when they signed him, there's going to be 2 top-flight receivers on this roster this year, and Rashee Rice and Hollywood Brown. But I've always felt like Hollywood has been more of a top-end 2 than a true number 1. But the way he's carrying himself and the way he's talking about what they're going to do, especially knowing that the rest of the wide receiver core is young, outside of Justin Watson, that's what they need in a number 1, to be a leader in the room, something they haven't had in a season or two. And I think together with what we thought were some of the drawbacks last year with the wide receiver core and the way they were coached, they need that edge. They need that trash talking kind of let's go out and prove it attitude. And that's what I'm digging right now on a meaningless June afternoon here. I'm liking hearing this from him.
Well, and to take it outside of even at minicamp or OTAs, he was with Worthy, and I can't remember what event they were doing this past weekend, but they were interviewing Worthy and asking him what he thought about Kansas City. And one of the things he mentioned was it has been a huge benefit to him to have a wide receiver that is similar to what he does on the team and able to help him. And he was there. I mean, Brown was there, Worthy was there. I believe Rashee Rice was there as well in this event. But the point is that Hollywood isn't just saying things. He's making sure that he's bringing along his teammates with him as well. And he is stepping into that leadership role, which that room sorely needs. And it could pay off huge dividends for Kansas City, because as we've talked about since Worthy was drafted, He's not Hollywood Brown. They're not the same wide receiver, but they are very similar and they do very similar things. And if you can learn from somebody that's been in the league that does something very similar to what you do, it can give you a quick leg up, and that could be huge for Kansas City this year on offense.
And honestly, it's hard to deal with one of them, let alone two of them. It only makes it harder. So the fact that they've been able to put a string of OTAs together, culminating in today. Tomorrow, folks, they're just going to have basic check-in. I believe it's the conditioning test. And boom, they're on their way to much-needed rest before training camp. So who else is stacking days? Who's making impressions? And where does it go from here? That's coming up next here in the Lockdown Podcast Network.
As a golfer for years, I've heard PXG say nobody makes golf clubs like they do. And they're right. They don't. I actually went in and I tested out and got fitted for one of their PXG Black Ops drivers. It is a total game changer. You no longer have to sacrifice distance for forgiveness. No matter how good the tools, getting fitted can take your game to a whole new level. And they'll even give you a dozen golf balls free just for doing it. The world-class team of PXG experts will analyze every aspect of your swing with every club and give you feedback in real time on how to improve. That was one of the most fun things that I did, was being able to see what's changed with the different setups of the driver they got. I started with a regular driver and ended up going up to 10.5 loft, and at the end I was at 12. And just watching how the ball changed and how it affected my swing, how it affected the distance, it's a lot of fun. You need to go check out and get fitted for a PXG golf club. And if you think PXG's high-performance equipment is too expensive, their clubs often cost less than the so-called leading brands. PXG made me a believer, and they'll do the same for every golfer in Kansas City. Visit pxg.com/lockedonchiefs to schedule your fitting at PXG Kansas City, 7517 West 119th Street in Overland Park. Get fitted for any club, and you'll get a dozen golf balls free. That's pxg.com/lockedonchiefs to schedule your fitting. pxg.com/lockedonchiefs. Limit 1 dozen golf balls per person. Promotion ends June 30th. Other terms and conditions may apply. See the store for details.
This is my favorite point, because as we go through, and we're wrapping up OTAs this time of year, folks, and we'll have a little bit more for you tomorrow as well on just the last bits and pieces as we get more reports out of what happened today. But clearly, it's been about Mahomes and Hollywood getting together. That culminated in what we talked about last segment. But it's more than that. There are young guys making noise. We talked about Nico Romeo all week. Justin Watson listed him when he was talking about speed, and he said defenses are just going to have to back up. That's just the way that it is. But who else is making some noise out there? It's a lot of different people. Brian Cook had another day out there on the defense today. I was glad to see that. Just got to keep the steady progress for him and Najee Johnson, guys coming off of an injury. But who else is really the standout for you that's been putting days together back to back?
Let me know if you've heard this name before, Jared Wiley.
Oh, what an idea.
It's exciting. You get a situation where and you and I have talked about this for years. We talked about the pitch count Kelce needed to be on. We've talked about the fact that Kansas City needs to try to find a replacement for him. And again, I'm not saying Wiley is going to be a one-on-one replacement for him. Nobody will be. But if he can step in and be successful and give you 60% of what Travis Kelce can do to an extent in year one, that's a huge win for Kansas City, because that gives Kelce the chance to take some more plays off, be healthier as the season goes on, and challenge defenses. And then you put the two of those guys on the field together. Could be a lot of fun.
I think it's going to be a really interesting evolution here, because to hear Travis talk about it, as we said with Matt the other day, he's ahead of the game in terms of understanding the offense. Former quarterback like Travis, but has played in 6 offenses in 6 years. That's just crazy. And so his ability to learn and to keep up, I think that's what's going to be key for him. Another standout here, guys putting days back to back together. As we've heard from multiple reports of people that are at practice, as we leave OTAs and we're looking for this break, it's only 5 weeks before training camp, folks. Right now, Kingsley Suamataia is in the lead, as we understand, for the left tackle position. That doesn't mean it can't change, but that is, I think, more than I was willing to bet on coming into this OTA session. I felt it would be a little bit more even, given the experience that Wanya Morris got on the field last year. That doesn't appear to be the case. And if that's the way it goes, I'm okay with that. The best player needs to play, but does that surprise you?
No, it doesn't surprise me. I think that it's going to be interesting to see how it turns out once training camp starts. And I'm talking when the pads actually come on. How do they play then? Because that's really what's going to tell you who's going to be the starter there. Kingsley, and I'm not saying this will happen, but Kingsley Suamataia can look great and know the offense, know where he's supposed to be, understand the plays, understand what he's supposed to be doing, and be doing all of that. But if he can't block better than Wanya Morris is, he will not stay the left tackle of the Chiefs, and he shouldn't. So in this scenario, I'm happy that he's there because this tells you that he is understanding what he is supposed to be doing. He's doing it well, and they like what they see from him. So that is a positive sign. But as it comes with any offensive or defensive lineman, we'll see once the pads come on and once you're able to start hitting people and technique is going to be a big thing for Kingsley Suamataia. It's something he needs to work on. And if he can get that down, I think he's going to be in a good spot this year. But if he plays week 1 and starts the entire year, he's going to be even better in year 2. And I think that's really what you get excited about.
I agree with you. And I will say this too. I'm excited about getting back like we did with Ron Parker and using the designation of DB rather than corner or safety. This group is varied, and Shamari Connor, Jaden Hicks, they're going to play multiple roles. I'm really leaning right now. Josh Williams is a guy who's put a couple of days back to back here at mandatory. He had a couple of standout days in OTA sessions as well. Jalen Watson's been hurt a little bit, not out there all the time. We have a lot of young guys coming back. Nick Jones is making some noise again. Najee Johnson obviously on the way back. Now you get Haddon that we talked about yesterday with Matt Battle coming on. Kelvin Joseph was hot early. I think he's still in the mix as well. And this scheme seems to be the most advantageous fit for him that he's had in his pro career. The problem becomes right now there's 7, maybe 8 guys that could make this roster as a corner or a DB, and they probably only have at max 6 slots, probably only 5. Yep. So it's going to be a tough one.
Yeah, and that's going to be the big issue. And I would say maybe they could keep 7, but only if you keep 4 safeties, 4 designated safeties. And it depends on how you throw guys out there and designate them however you want. But it's possible they keep 11 in the DB room. When you look at how deep they are at that room, it makes a lot of sense that they could consider keeping that many. But that's a lot of DBs to have. And the bigger thing that I think is going to play into that is they have a ton of talent. But as we kind of talked about yesterday, with the change in the kickoff rules, DBs may not be somebody you want to keep as many of this year as you may have in the past, because you're not going to need the gunners near as much as you have in the past. And, Matt mentioned, I believe that Shamari Connor is stepping into the nickel role. If he's stepping into the nickel role, that means that you have, and Nazi is running with the first team with McDuffie. That means that Williams and Watson are now second team corners. And that is crazy to think about with all that they've played throughout their time here. And that doesn't even talk about Nick Jones. That doesn't talk about any of the other guys that are out there. Like you mentioned, Kelvin Joseph, and you got a huge guy in Battle who is bigger than Williams, and Williams was big. So, I mean, it's going to be, absolutely. It's going to be something to watch. And I'm really curious to see how that turns out.
I am too. And what we're going to do, folks, we'll wrap up mandatory minicamp tomorrow. And for the next 5 weeks, we're going to start setting you up for what we're going to see in training camp. We're going to look at roster predictions. We're going to look at battle predictions. We're going to look at who we can see making inroads and who has an opportunity. Remember, we're 5 days a week all year long. Doesn't matter if we're off or not.
Speaking of which, with training camp, I don't know that we'll have that for you on Friday's episode. Probably not. It sounds like they're probably going to release that on Friday. So we will have that covered for you on Monday. But just know that date is not set in stone right now. That has been announced. And generally speaking, the Chiefs like to drop things on Friday afternoons. So my guess is we'll be covering it and talking to you about it on Monday.
Yeah, probably. But that said, lot to come as we wrap up this set and we get ready for this 5 week span. Enjoy yourselves. Get ready for some football. Think of your questions. We'll be doing some Q&As as we get towards training camp as well. We have tons of content for you. So make sure you like, sub, hit the bell on YouTube, and get subbed on Spotify or Apple Music or whatever you like, whatever platform, because we're here all the time. If you want to just take some time off and you want to know when something happens, hit 816-357-8781, and you're going to find out what goes on when we release it. Thank you for your time. Tomorrow, wrap up, standouts, anything that we can take a hint from, parting shots as we wrap up mandatory minicamp. Be with us tomorrow. We appreciate you listening today. We will talk to you then.